everyone, this is Outstar and welcome to the next Vampire the Masquerade related video. Today we're going to talk about cults, religion, death, and the clans of death. My absolute favorite topics. I'm going to share with you the details from the newest Vampire the Masquerade V5 book, Cults of the Blood Gods. It's on Kickstarter right now, released by Onyx Path Publishing, and I was contacted by Onyx Path and the wonderful Matthew Dawkins, gentleman gamer, who I've been a fan of for years now, with the full manuscript of this book, and they sent it to me to my absolute screams and screeches of joy. So I had the chance to already get to know what the book entails. And let me be honest with you guys, this was the book which, out of all of the V5 releases, sans for the core book, I was anticipating the most. Not only because of the cults themselves and the whole idea of religion mingled with Vampire the Masquerade setting, which is for me very interesting, but also because of so many things I wanted this book to have. The introduction of Clan of Death into Vampire the Masquerade V5 gave me the hopes to be able to play either a Giovanni, Cappadocian, maybe Samedi, maybe Nagaraja. The sole mention of the Clan of Death gave me hope that maybe we'll hear something about Serena from Redemption, and obviously I was looking forward to any mention of the necromancy, new rituals, ceremonies, anything to soothe my little necromancer's heart after my failed experiments in my basement. Don't tell my husband. And let me tell you, this book has everything I wanted and more. I'm not only extremely impressed by its writing, but also very much impressed by the sheer amount of content this book has. It gave me so many ideas for the role-playing, and it has so many things I would like to use in my campaigns that I was just rushing for the Christmas to be able to sit here and record this video for you so I can share all the details. And fortunately, Matthew Dawkins, thank you so much, Master, gave me a chance to share all the details I want from the book with you. So that's what I'm going to do today. But we need to start from a very basic question in this video. Question which will explain to you the majority of this book, because I guess the book is separated half by half in between the lore of the Clan of Death and the possibility of playing them and religions and cults. The main question that may arise in your head when you think about the contents of this book is, why religion? Why exactly do vampires need to believe in something? And the answer is very simple and very broad at the same time. For the same reasons that humans have to either establish or believe in the existing religions or cults. The first reason would be the purpose, the general purpose and meaning of your unlife. You are being stripped of your mortal life, your mortal connections, you are being thrown into this world which seems to be meaningless. You are undead and eternal, and it's only normal for you in a position like that to search for your own path. Whether that path is going to be your path to power or it's going to be a path to some kind of a greater good. Each of these things can be paired with a religion or backed up with a religion to help you climb on that ladder. Throughout the undead, there are those who suffered a lot, because we do suffer the loss of our close ones, the loss of our family. We are being abandoned by our sires, we don't really trust any of the big sects, and it is only normal for anyone to seek a group in which we can find acceptance, in which we can find some shoulder to lean on, metaphorically or physically. Humans do turn into religion out of the suffering very often, or out of the uncertainty. They want answers, they want purpose, and they want comforting. And vampires do need these three things as well, especially in the modern times when we have not only so many thin bloods which are being embraced and thrown into this whole cauldron of the world of darkness without the purpose and without people to back them up. They may be the ones that join the religions first. But then we also have the Ancillae, the old vampires whose elders, whose sires have been drawn by the beckoning to the Gehenna War, and they are suddenly left alone and they do not understand what caused their sires to leave. And they might be also afraid that they will be called as well. So they join the cults to find the answer to all these questions which trouble their eternal minds. But of course, that's the less menacing perspective of that. Many humans establish cults or join cults for the need of climbing that social ladder, for the willing of getting riches, getting power, and finally getting their own worshippers, which will act like a flock of sheep to the shepherd. Imagine corrupted priests who just gather the wealth to themselves and want to have power over the people. Imagine the gurus of sects that isolate people from their families and throw them through this whole laundry of brainwashing. Imagine Charles Manson, imagine Jonestown. People who are behind these concepts do not have clear conscience exactly, and they use the cult of a greater good or a cult of personality to establish their power, to establish their dominion. And this book is also about that. Of course, it's not very black and white. None of the cults is particularly evil or particularly good. It depends on your personal definition of what evil is, or your personal definition of how much can a person go through the path of manipulating others, brainwashing others, and even causing suffering and death for the greater good. So I think that establishes the whole theme of the book pretty well. And now I want to get a little bit more into detail and tell you guys what the book has for you. One of the biggest chapters of the book entails the Kindred cults. Cults built by Kindred for Kindred, led by Kindred. These cults very often welcome mortals as the servants, as helpers, especially on the lower tiers, but they are mainly focused around Kindred. And we have very vast kinds of cults and churches described in the book. I would say that there's something for everyone in there. There are cults specifically meant for the Finbloods, cults which develop this matriarchal system, but then you also have the patriarchal churches, which are kind of a reflection of the Catholic Church. You have cults which kind of promote or go by the idea of high humanity and controlling your beast, and then you also have cults which have a lot of people of very low humanity, and the beast is a tool that is to be used for the greater good again. I'm not going to go into very deep detail describing you these cults, but I'm going to mention them and give you the most important or interesting aspects of them, just so you know what you can expect. First of all, we have the Ashfinders, which is the cult mainly aimed for the Finbloods. A very cool concept originating from a Tremere leader, in which the ash of elder vampires mostly exported from the Gehenna War. People literally gathering the ash from the dead elders from the battlefield and exporting it to various countries, where the Finblood alchemists concoct a drug from them called ash. And this drug works on Finbloods only and gives them the ability to learn the memories of the vampires whose ashes they consume. Not only that, but they are also able to gain temporarily some of their discipline powers. This is the power that comes with a huge cost, because not only ash is a very addictive drug, but also the remnants of the elder vampires create the mysterious monsters called beast shards. So a poor Finblood trying to get another dose of their powerful drug may fail making the concoction and call the beast shard from the shadows. I think it's a very cool concept, which again gives Finbloods an ability to become way more powerful than they are, even if temporary, but with a cost which is high enough to make this interesting. So again, I'm recommending you guys to watch my old Finblood video, which I've made. I'm going to post it down below, because Finbloods are really cool in V5, and there is a lot of incentives to play them. I think Ashfinders are another big incentive to try to dabble with them. Then we have the Bihari, the cult which was already mentioned in the V5 core book. Bihari believed that all vampires come from Lilith, not from Cain. The Cainites are the usurpers, and Cain itself was a very negative figure in Bihari's eyes. He was the abuser, he was the bad guy, while Lilith was the one that we should worship. So Bihari is a very matriarchal cult, you could say. It's very much of a feministic, female-oriented cult, but it is not as misandrist as Gorgos worshippers are. They are a smaller cult mentioned in the book, which had a schism with the Bihari back in the days. You could say that Biharis are just less radical Gorgos. But there is a new coterie type mentioned in the Bihari section, which is called Nemesis. And Nemesis, they do go by the idea of revenge. So it's a coterie which forms up to seek revenge either against the abusers or against the Cainites, people who believe in Cain. And what unifies them is this destructive willing of getting some kind of a justice, their type of justice. The goal of Bihari is to establish the gardens all around the globe, to prepare the earth for the comeback of Lilith. One of the very controversial and rare view in Bihari as a cult is the view that the only way for Lilith to come back is to cover everything in water. So these Biharis try to bring the flood to planet Earth, and they are in minority, but I think it would be a pretty interesting coterie, the Nemesis coterie, which tries to literally flood the whole Earth. But their connection to nature is actually a source of pretty cool rituals which they have. There is Coax the Garden ritual, which brings the plants to life around you to attack or entwine people who try to get you. So you can literally use the park in the middle of a city to attack those filthy Canaanites. There's also Eden's Bounty, which is extremely dark. The ritual which involves a corpse, a rotten apple, and a fresh apple, and you need to put the apples in your mouth and the corpse's mouth. You lay down the corpse and you leech the blood from your surroundings. Up to, I believe, 2 kilometers around you. Basically all humans which walk around the park, let's say, you get a little bit of blood from them through this ritual. The ritual can cause immense amount of stains if you, for example, do it next to a children's hospital, where you would literally leech the blood from unsuspecting children and cause damage to them, of course, make them weaker. But it can also be stainless if you, for example, do it in a park and you just... There are some people around you just get a little bit of blood and you move on if they don't notice you with the corpse and the apple in your mouth. This ritual is one of the causes why Budapest, one of the biggest centers of Bihari nowadays, is the city in which a lot of people have anemia these days. Because there are just too many Bihari doing a lot of leeching for the ground and feeding this way. Anyway, Bihari is a cult for you if you like nature, if you like Lilith, and I guess if you like sex, blood, and the total overabundance of resources that you can feast from. Pretty good way of spending around life. On the very other side of the Bihari, so their total opponents, you have the Church of Cain, the Cainite heresy. These guys you may remember if you actually read the Book of Nod or if you remember the older editions. Church of Cain is kind of a reflection of the Christian Catholic Church, which puts Cain in the place where Catholic Church puts Jesus. That's, I guess, a very simplified description of it. They are very much patriarchal. They are very much pro-vampire, anti-mortal. Mortals are but vessels that you as vampire lords feed from. It's actually funny because for Church of Cain I had to ask Matthew Dawkins why exactly the Church of Cain is so much against and was fighting historically the Sabbat, while they seem to have a very similar approach to life and approach to rules as Sabbat does. Vampires are better than humans. Vampires should rule the earth. All of this bumbo jumbo. And the main idea is the La Sombra, the leaders of the Sabbat, were always very closely controlling the Catholic Church, and their biggest source of power was through that church. And the Church of Cain was a direct opponent to the Catholic Church. So you could say there was some kind of a schism in there, and the Church of Cain was a bit like Protestantism, right? So they were on the same roots, kind of the same kind of beliefs, but different, and stealing each other's believers. But if you are more inclined to join this patriarchal, classic kind of a church with cool robes and ceremonies and sacraments and shit, Church of Cain serves you well. The coolest part about the Church of Cain is what I simply call the fire magic. It is not exactly called the fire magic, but it basically is fire magic. One of the main sacraments of the Church of Cain is the sacrament of fire walking, in which the believer is meant to walk through the whole fire. At the beginning there are just candles burning, and then there are bigger torches burning around you, and then you literally have to walk through the corridor of fire. And you have to withstand it bravely. You have to withstand the frenzy, the road trek, and walk to the end, fighting your fear of fire. The very first level ritual allows you to fear the fire less. But then you have more interesting things, like fire in the blood, which causes the blood in your enemy that you're casting it on to literally burn and cause the damage and immense pain from the inside. And then one of the creepiest powers of the Church of Cain worshippers is Creatio Ignis, the ritual in which you smear blood all over your hands and it sets on fire, and you can use your fiery limbs to hack someone very dearly, causing aggravated damage with each second that you hold them. A pretty cool way to kill other vampires, wouldn't you say? After the Church of Cain, we have something that a lot of people were waiting for, the Church of Set. Now, another book of the V5 setting already introduces the new version of the followers of Set as a clan to players. They are now called Ministry, and interesting thing is the Church of Set is not Ministry, and the Ministry is not the Church of Set. There are some Ministry members which are a part of Church of Set, but basically these are different things. You could say that the Ministry, which is the new name, the rebranding of followers of Set, are a little bit more modern, reformed, Their approach to Set as the entity, their approach to worship is different, and the Church of Set is more orthodox, more old followers of Set-like. So if you know them from older editions, if you play them, then Church of Set is something that you might be interested in. And for those of you who have no idea who Setites are, the Setites, followers of Set, ministry, they're kind of a menacing old clan which bases on the idea of chaos. You are meant to spread chaos in all the means possible. You are meant to free the vampires from their shackles, the shackles of their convictions, the shackles of the rules that they obey. So modern ministry are very much connected with the Anarchs, and the Church of Set in general, well, it doesn't really have any ties to Camarilla. They are used by vampires of any sects, really, for their ability to get you literally anything that you need. They are traders, they're dabbling in drugs, in human trafficking, they're dabbling in a lot of useful criminal stuff that leaders or participants of any of the sects may find useful. But their convictions themselves and what leads them, what motivates them, is something that a lot of vampires fear, for a good reason. The Church of Set part of the book gives you the details, for example, for the protean forms of animals that Setites very often take. There's also a new coterie type, Saboteurs, which is of course a group of vampires which joins together to sabotage the existing sect or the existing status quo in the city. But one of the creepiest parts of the book is the abilities that Church of Set introduces. These are new skills which are available for various disciplines, starting with Mental Maze for the Obfuscate discipline, which allows you to entrap someone literally anywhere, making them feel like the entrance, the doors to a particular room they are in at the moment is going to lead them deeper into the maze. So for example, if someone casted this on me right now, I wouldn't be able to get out of this room because I would think that these doors actually lead somewhere deeper into the prison which I'm kept in. It's a super creepy power, but this is not all. You have the presence power of true love's face, without even knowing what the true love, who the true love of someone else's is. You are able to conceal your image and you're able to turn yourself into who they love the most. This power can have different sides to it. For example, you can also turn yourself into someone who they hate the most. But the ability to possess the true love's face is something truly spectacularly threatening. And used in a campaign, it may really shatter someone's heart. And then last but not least, something for your Harry Potter fans and the Horcruxes and stuff. You have the Heart of Darkness, the ability to take your own heart from your chest without cutting it open and placing it somewhere else and being able to walk around heartless, which makes you immune to staking. Of course, if someone will stake that heart, which you keep somewhere safe, then you will be staked. But if they stake your body, you're fine. When you separate your heart from your body, you do turn emotionless, you do turn cold. But then again, you do not really expect someone who would do that to be a warm, wonderful being. And speaking of being cold and emotionless, the next cult is the cult of Shalim, which is a very interesting take on the cult of Oblivion. Oblivion is the void, it's the abyss. It is a different dimension of eternal darkness and the lack of everything, the lack of feelings, the lack of memories. And Shalimites believe that in order to get rid of all the suffering, of all the pain that we experience during our own life, we need to get rid of feelings in general, with the help of Oblivion. One of the most creepy powers of the Shalimites is the Pit of Contemplation, the ritual in which they take the innocent person, and by innocent I mean a virgin or a child. They murder them, and with their blood they open the portal to Oblivion, to which they can cast away someone and imprison them in eternal darkness. I would say that a lot of Shalimites do it out of their own volition. They just enter this portal because they want to experience this absolute lack of anything, the absolute nothingness. And I would say that Shalimites are a very enticing cult, especially for vampires who suffered a lot. You find it hard to deal with the problems of the unlife, just look into the abyss, and the abyss will look back at you. Then we have the cult of Mithras, the Methuselah, which is rumored to be back. And you could say, simplified way, this is a cult of order, a very traditional type of hierarchy. And Mithras himself has a lot of images that may be enticing for a lot of different clan members. For example, Bruja may join the cult of Mithras because they see him as a god of war. And through their study of Mithraistic secrets, they may get the amazing skills of fortitude, in which they will be able to break other people's weapons with bare hands. The Toreadors may see Mithras as the ultimate beautiful creature. The Ventru may see Mithras as the god of kings and the king himself. The important part of the cult of Mithras is that they are the absolute opposition of the Church of Set. As much as Setites are about chaos, are about freedom and the ability to break all the bonds and let yourself free to the world, Mithras is about hierarchy, blood bonds, law and order. But because of that, the cult of Mithras might be the best fit for Camarilla these days. So if you're playing a vampire who is more fit to the hierarchy and power of the Camarilla, Mithras might be the god for you. After I finished reading the part about Mithras, I was very happy to see a reintroduction of the concept and the cult that made its appearance in Vampire Dark Ages. Something that will very much fit Toreador players. Children of Angels, the Nephilim, come back. It was said, I don't know if it was in Dark Ages or other books, that Nephilim are all gone. Unfortunately, they're not. Nephilim are back and they are rising in power because of their amazing ability to partially overcome Nosferatu's curse. And I think this is one of the biggest news of the book. So who are Nephilim? Nephilim are mainly Toreadors, or back in the days they were mainly Toreadors, which were the immediate descendants of Methuselah Michael, who was the self-proclaimed Archangel. Back in the Dark Ages book, there was a path of the Archangel that Nephilim players were often picking. And nowadays, the whole goals of Nephilim didn't really change. They want the world to be beautiful. They are the prophets of beauty. Historically, they built beautiful cities with beautiful architecture, destroying the slums, pushing the poor and the dirty and the ugly towards the deepest, most distant parts of the cities, just to make those perfect little worlds for themselves. And today Nephilim are about just the same. They are about that beauty. To the point that when you are a very vigorous worshipper of Michael, you may actually turn yourself into a more beautiful vampire. You get additional dots in beauty, or you may even get stunning out of that. If you're already stunning, then you get additional dots to presence. Your skin is glowing, your hair is shiny, your limbs are growing a little bit, so you seem to be slender and beautiful. And Nosferatu, although they're not allowed to take the higher parts of the hierarchy of the Nephilim cult, they are invited in and enticed to join Nephilim to partially overcome their curse. Because as much as the blessing of the Archangel doesn't make them pretty and they are still more ugly than their other vampiric counterparts, they turn more human because of it. They look more normal. And this is something that a lot of Nosferatu deeply want. The Nosferatu elders are extremely afraid of what the Nephilim are doing, and are extremely afraid of the recruitment of the young Nosferatu fledglings who really want to overcome their curse, which are being drawn to the Nephilim. But ultimately, this is the only way for them to feel a little bit normal, to mingle with the mortal society. Not even vicissitude in the older editions could do that, but Nephilim are able to give you that chance. You're still going to be ugly, but you're going to be less ugly. There's also a part of Nephilim called Angels of Vengeance, which are much more radical beauty lovers. And these guys actually exterminate Nosferatu. So if you want to play a Toreador who hates ugliness as much to actually push you to commit vicious, violent acts against the Nosferatu clan, here's a cult for you. There are also some minor cults which are described in the book. I'm not going to describe them in detail because this video is going to be long anyway. But there is a cult of anti-diablerists, there is a cult of very posh and fashionable Nosferatu, and there is a cult of crazy Malkavians hunted mostly by the other Malkavians. Anyway, there are things that you guys have to see. And then we move towards the mortal cults, and these ones are as interesting as the kindred ones. These are the mortal cults which are either somehow connected to the world of darkness and the world of vampires, or are led by vampires themselves. We start with the House of Antares, established by a vampiric couple, which were embraced together, and right after the embrace, they started to blood bond each other in the blood wedding, which is something that other vampires very often look very badly at. The mutual blood bonds seem to be very toxic, and they're not something positive to worship in the eyes of many vampires, but apparently for this couple it worked, and they are deeply, deeply in love with each other. And the House of Antares is a cult of love. They invite mortals in to spread the sermon of love and spread the idea that the path of happiness leads through love, or understanding the meaning of love. Of course, the deeper the meetings go, the longer you participate in them, the more your brain is washed with this idea that love eventually means willingly giving your blood to others. And this way this couple not only made this powerful cult around each other, but also made themselves a beautiful herd of people who willingly give them their blood because that's how they show love. The cult is very much sexual, it's romantic in some sort, but ultimately, of course, it's about using these poor people for the good of the cult establishers. The next one will be the Church of Means, which is the cult of money. It's basically a huge pyramid scheme established by one vampire who entices people in with the power of money. Invest $10 at the beginning and we are going to pay you back fully, or you're going to earn money on that. We're going to make you a millionaire. It's a very simple scam, but written in a very fun way, and I think it would make a very interesting campaign to surround it around that. But it's the third mortal cult, which is one of my favorites probably. It's a very interesting idea playing on the idea of teenage superheroes. It's the Circle of Leah, and Leah is a girl, a goth girl, that got turned by a vampire who fled her immediately. She doesn't know her clan, she doesn't even know that clans exist. She doesn't know anything about vampire world, the sects, anything. She just has no idea. But she always had this dream of being more powerful than she was, being like a regular goth girl, and actually seeking justice. Basically, she read a lot of comic books and she really wants to be this just superhero that spreads justice around the city. Through her circle of friends, she told them that she's a vampire, and she started experimenting with, for example, giving them her blood, which turned out to give them superpowers, but also created the blood bonds, which Leah has no idea about. So she unwillingly blood-bound her friends to her, and now she leads this group of superheroes that is meant to fight the crime in the city. The problem is she has no idea why all of her human friends are so eager to help her with all of these tasks. For example, hiding the bodies of the criminals they killed together. And the truth is, they are basically brainwashed by her blood bonds, and poor Leah, she doesn't really know. It's such an interesting idea. I love the fact that there is literally someone in the setting that has the same knowledge about vampires that we do, let's say. You know, like a regular teenager who read a lot of vampire fiction, and she draws the conclusions from that, and she established this little cult around it. She doesn't really call it a cult, but it is a cult per se, because for those that she bloodbound, she is the goddess now. Another one will be the Dread Cult of Eligos, which is an idea established by Second Inquisition. There was a project which they came up, the Project Cathedral, which was supposed to establish this fake vampiric cult and use the vampiric methods of establishing a chain of worshippers and see in reality how that kind of a cult would work. So what they do is they pretend that they are vampires, and they pretend that there is this very powerful vampire called Eligos on the top of this chain. And they draw in humans who are willing to give their own blood for this mystical Eligos, who doesn't exist. The fun fact about the Dread Cult of Eligos is that some of the SI members who are working in this cult, playing the role of prophets, they start to like this role very much. There is the mention of this woman who is actually an SI agent, that likes the idea of being the prophetess Jezebel so much that she actually plays this role of being a powerful vampire. She dresses up and she loves every second of it. I think it's not going to be too late before someone's actually turned some of the members of the Dread Cult of Eligus, and they're going to turn into real vampires and face away from the SI. But as for the moment, this is the project of the church that kind of seems to slowly backfire. There are also other cults and secret organizations mentioned, like for example the secret organization of student hunters, and some minor ones, but I think these ones are the most interesting. Finally, after establishing all of these existing cults in the world that the game exists in, and the book gives you the full chapter on how to construct your own personal cult from the scratch. It gives you tons of resources, from the name table to the antediluvians and old vampires that you may want to worship. It gives you the list of questions which you need to ask yourself before you establish the cult. Why? What kind of people are you aiming for? What are your personal goals? There's also a very big cheat sheet of the symbolism, from which you can draw from symbols to your own logos or things that you use during the sermons. And most menacingly of all, I would say, it gives you the psychological tools which you can use to gain worshippers to your cult. So it's kind of like a description of psychological tools that the cults use to gain those poor little sheep. The love bombing, the separation, the isolation, a lot of really creepy concepts that are very much fitting to the cult like that in the World of Darkness. But all the cult and religious things aside, after you read all of those, there is a time for a part of the book that I was the most excited for. The part about the Clan of Death, which in itself is also a cult. The one that does not actually need worshippers from outside, because being embraced into the clan, you're automatically a part of this big family. And we are talking about the new clan called Hecata. Hecata is both a new name and a very old name, which is kind of like the grouping of all the clans of death. The establisher, the great padre of the clan Giovanni, is gone. He died. And there are a lot of theories how he died, who killed him, what group exactly is behind it. But his death actually unleashed a lot of wraiths and specters he had under his command. And the poor members of the clans of death are being targeted by these wraiths and specters. So there was a very big need of some kind of a reunion. Not only because of the Giovanni's death and all the repercussions of that, but also because the beefs and arguments that their elders have are not really relevant anymore in the modern ages. Of course, the modern members of the clans of death, they may still feel this need of revenge, this very deeply ingrained hatred towards the other parts of the clan. Naturally, there might be a lot of backstabbing going on, and there probably will be, because Clan Hecata is the one that has the biggest internal war between each other. But overall, I guess it's kind of like in your regular family. On the surface, everyone loves each other and it's beautiful and it's great. Under the surface, everyone wants to kill each other, but they don't voice it at the Christmas dinner. So what the family reunion has caused? It has caused for all of these death bloodlines that I'm going to mention, by the way, and there are a lot of them, and all of them that you probably want to see are in the book. And all of them right now are one big clan that may also have some differences in between each other based on the bloodline. But as a base, they are the Hecata. Some things have changed. For example, their curses have changed because they were different back in the days. Nagaraja, they had to eat flesh. Giovanni had the painful kiss. Cappadocians looked and smelled like corpses. Samadhi, similar. Nowadays, all of the Hecata have the curse of the painful kiss. So when they bite a human, they actually cause them damage. They cause immense pain, which also is a source of animosities in the family itself, because when you embrace your family member, which is very often a thing in the clan Hecata, you have to give them a lot of pain first. You have to put them through the suffering. The basic disciplines of clan Hecata are Auspex, Fortitude, and Oblivion. And Oblivion, you could say, is the same as La Sombra have, but it also has additional ceremonies, which are probably one of the most fun parts of the book. You can also exchange these disciplines if you are a part of a particular bloodline inside the Hecata. So for example, Giovanni can replace Allspex with Dominate, and Samadhi can replace Allspex with Obfuscate. The book gives you the opportunities for exchanging the clan disciplines depending on your bloodline. But ultimately it's Oblivion which connects all of these clans together. It's the discipline that allows you to become a little necromancer, finally. So the powers that Oblivion gives you go from the necromancy, including the shambling hordes which are back, and finally it allows you to resurrect fresh corpses, although not in a way that the family members would maybe like it, because once you animate the corpse, the personality within is of the spectre that possesses the body. So you take the random spectre that wants to possess a body at the moment, which a lot of them actually would totally use this occasion to walk the earth, and yeah, the body stays the same, but whatever is inside is different. One of the most fun powers of Oblivion is, I think, the ability to create a homuncular servant, in which you take either a small animal or a part of the body. It can be a hand, like Adam's family, or maybe an ear or a foot, and you can animate it to be your little spy and servant. You can look through its non-existent eyes. It doesn't have to have eyes to see. It doesn't matter whether it has limbs or nerves or muscles to do so, but it can walk and it can hop. So you can literally get the ear from someone and it will hop around and it will do things for you. It's great. With the power called Ex Nihilo, vampires can literally go into the Shadowlands and go on a little tourist trip around the necropolis. Of course, in the Shadowlands you are not the apex predator anymore, and there's also no blood in there. So instead, the vampires with Oblivion discipline may feed on the passion of the wraiths. This is only a temporary way of feeding, but with the correct ability, you can leech the dominant emotions from the specters that will provide you sustenance for some time. You're also able to summon the wraiths, to shackle them, to use them to your own commands. So whether you want to animate the whole body and use it as your guards, or animate the body part, or shackle the ghost for your own servitude, as a necromancer you can do all of these things. And best of all, you can do it as one of the many bloodlines, which for a lot of them I was waiting for. Bloodlines mentioned by the book are the bankers of Duncern, which are more of the money-oriented cousins of Giovanni, you could say. They are the ones who were making money, while Giovanni were the ones who were spending it. Then you also have children of Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan, I'm not really sure if I pronounce Aztec properly, but this is of course the clan of death which comes from the ancient Aztecs. Then you have the descendants of the Baron, which are the all goods Samadhi. The flesh eaters, the Nagaraja, who this time they do not have to eat corpses, but they can do so. And you can roleplay them in a way that they have to get the sustenance from the flesh as well. Then you have the Harbingers of Ashur, which are the compilation, you could say, of Cappadocians and Harbingers of Skulls. But the book mentions, though, that the classic Cappadocians are still present, although they were not really a part of the family reunion. And maybe they're actually planning in the future to join the Camarilla, because Clan Hecata as a whole is still independent. It is the only fully independent clan in the V5 system so far. And fun fact, the book actually mentions Serena, and she's still alive. She's apparently in Jerusalem doing something. The book is not actually mentioning exactly what, but it is mentioning that she's still there, and makes me very, very happy. Then you of course have the Familia Giovanni, but you also have the criminal Puttanesca, which is the family which was by tradition used by Giovanni for this criminal activities. Very much connected to the Godfather lore, I would say. But this time they're not mainly ghouls. They're actually a part of the bloodline, and they are kind of used still by the Hecata as this part of the clan that dabbles in the lowest criminal things. They're the ones that deal the bodies and hide them. They are using this reputation to their best. And last but not least, we have the Gorgons, the Lamiae, descendants of the legendary Lamia. So all of these bloodlines are available to you after getting the Clothes book. You're able to play a Hecata vampire with the lore sheet of each of these bloodlines to establish your own character. This is how it works in the practice. You are not playing exactly as the vampire of Clan Samadhi. You are playing a vampire of Clan Hecata who has the Samadhi lore sheet, and this way you are part of the Samadhi bloodline. You cannot, of course, take more than one bloodline. You can only pick one, so it kind of works like a clan. But I guess it gives you a lot of more clanmates, you can say, the family members, because all of the clans of death are united under the one banner right now. Additionally, the book lists the types of specters that you can use in your campaigns, like poltergeist and screamers, so there's a lot of more chance for you to actually use the wraiths and ghosts and specters in your stories. There are two new predator types. First of all, the extortionists that take the blood by forcing and coercing the mortals into bloodletting. So you are not actually touching them with your fangs, you are dominating them or in some other way coercing them into getting their blood out of their veins. This is a very important type of predator for the clan Hecata, who may not want to cause the suffering with their bite, so they need to find other ways to extort the blood from the victim. And the second predator type would be the grave robber, because as much, of course, as you can feed on the fresh corpses, and the grave robber comes with your little haven dot that you can use, for example, to stay in a crypt or a morgue, grave robbers very often do not feed on the corpses, they are feeding on the freshly mourning, living people, the relatives of that particular corpse. So they are feeding mostly from the melancholy type of resonance, and they are just aiming for them funerals. But in general, this is the predator type which operates around the graveyards. The book mentions many more coterie types, which I haven't mentioned because there are tons of them. The cults mentioned more cults, the smaller cults, which might be more interesting to you. More powers, rituals, disciplines, ceremonies, which I haven't mentioned again because there's just so much of it. In general, it is bursting with content that you can use in your campaigns. When it comes to the writing itself, I think that Matthew Dawkins, the gentleman gamer who is responsible for a big part of the writing, really made sure that the quality is going to be top-notch. I love the fiction parts, the little letters, the little stories, transcriptions of recordings which are added to the book. I could talk about them for ages because there's so much good content in there, but you just have to read it yourself. It's a huge book which I devoured in 2 days and I absolutely loved every part of it. Now, of course, I have to mention, because there might be questions about the general quality or the possible controversies of the book, because V5 releases have this kind of a reputation, unfortunately, that before the erratas, before the corrections, you know, the original manuscripts had some edgy themes or had some edgy parts which were not very much to the taste of a lot of people. If you followed the release of V5 core book and the Camarilla and Anarch books, then you probably know the whole drama. I think it's the best written book so far from all of those V5 books I've read in the original versions. First of all, it is way better organized than the core book is, because core book, as much as I very much like it, I feel like it's a bit chaotic and it's very hard to find information in it. But Cult is a book with a very clear layout and the chapters are exactly what they should be about, and the information is not really spread out that much. Of course, when you are picking your own cult, then you may also want to go to the chapter of lore sheets, because there you will have more details about the actual lore sheet of said cult. Same with the Bloodlines, but it's not a big trouble, I think. The core book gave me a lot of more trouble in finding information than the cult's book did. And when it comes to edginess, I think the edgiest thing that I've read in the whole book was the quote from one of the Giovanni members, which is kind of a wink to the old incestual history of Clan Giovanni. And the quote says more or less that the Clan Giovanni is the only clan in which the word motherfucker isn't an insult. And what I don't like about this part is the fact that the book never explains it for the new players. They have probably no idea why is it in the book in general, because I don't remember the book ever mentioning it again and ever mentioning the incestual history of Clan Giovanni. So it's a wink to older players who know the previous editions. And of course, the book, because of the whole cult setting and the religious background, it has a lot of themes which may be very difficult to roleplay and very heavy to roleplay as well. The abilities which I mentioned for the cults, the coercing into a cult, the love bombing. But it does have this short but I think very needed passage about warning your players about it and how to do that properly, just to make sure that the atmosphere at your table is not toxic and everyone is ready for the darkness which the setting is going to bring, because Cult of the Blood Gods in general is a very dark book, which it should be, because I think that when you're reading a book about the vampiric cults and the clan of death and all of these things, it is supposed to be dark. So it does mention themes like child sacrifice, like gaslighting, like leeching out of your deepest emotions and stuff like that. Yeah, it's dark. I'm not sure how many changes are there going to be from the manuscript which I've read, read, but I feel like the manuscript itself is very solid. In comparison to the first versions of the previous books, it's just the most solid of all of them. So if you guys think that this book is something up to your taste, you can back it on Kickstarter and you will have access to the manuscript previews and you will be able to see in detail some of the things that which I'm talking about in this video. And then in the future you'll receive the full manuscript, so you'll be able to roleplay it yourself in your campaign. Thank you so much to Onyx Path Publishing for giving me a chance to read the book before everyone else. This was a great opportunity and I was super happy that I was able to do so. And thank you to Matthew Dawkins for giving me a green light to share this information with you guys. I can't wait to play my own little Hecata, and let me know what you guys think about it. I want to know which bloodline you're the most excited for. I want to know which cult you would join, or maybe what kind of a cult you would like to lead in the World of Darkness. Let me know in the comments below, and thank you so much for listening to this super long video. See you in another one, and don't get lost in the night. Goodbye.